Hello and welcome to the YYC Soccer Podcast. My name is Jason Kmet and my co-host is Scott Strasser. Hey, Scott.
Hey, Jason, how's it going?
Good. How was your week?
Same as last time we talked, which was, I think, 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, so we're not going to try and deceive anyone here. So we're recording this immediately after we record our previous episode, which is on Thursday evening, March 13th. And we're doing this because of availability. We had an interview in advance that we wanted to play, and we can't really do a full episode this week.
No, because we don't know what's happened this week because it's actually last week.
Exactly. There's been no new news since we finished recording the other episode a few minutes ago.
But as you mentioned, we had an interview. We wanted to release an episode. We didn't want to go 2 weeks in a row without one because we won't be releasing an episode at the end of March for the same reasons. But yeah, so we chatted earlier this week with Carlo Bruneau from the Calgary Minor Soccer Association. We've talked, you and I, about the indoor field shortage in Calgary a couple of times in recent months, but this was actually the first time that we managed to get someone from the CMSA to talk firsthand about how the shortage has impacted the organization. So this was a really good interview to get for us.
It's definitely relevant to the Calgary soccer scene, and this whole project, Fields for Our Future, has become really a pretty big deal. It's gotten a lot of coverage in various media sources, trying to raise this awareness. I think they have done a pretty good job of getting the word out there, and it's an important, relevant issue for sure.
For sure, and every once in a while, Jason, my two worlds collide. My day job as a reporter for the Calgary Herald, spending most of my days at City Hall. It's been interesting to see soccer related things come to council chambers fairly often in the last few months, and lately there have been a couple of conversations in that room about the lack of indoor fields in Calgary. Most recently, there was a public hearing about a long-term spending plan for recreation facilities that the city is embarking on called Game Plan. So there was a big public hearing. A lot of people came out to speak to the need for, more pools or better pools, more baseball diamonds, that kind of thing. And there was a lot of people from the soccer community. There were youth players wearing their team jerseys, but there was also executives like Carlo from the CMSA, as well as from Alberta Soccer. So it was neat for my two worlds to once again collide and hear them talk about the kinds of things that you and I talk about on this podcast on a fairly regular basis.
Yeah, I think this whole game plan initiative is pretty important. I think, I don't want to turn this into a whole big picture non-soccer conversation, but projects like this, like having recreational facilities and these sorts of things, is really an important element of making a city livable, right? A lot of times I think we think about municipal affairs and municipal governments, about getting, having the roads fixed and everything like that. But, all the sort of the infrastructure type things. But these things are also, hugely important in just making your city a place you want to be.
Yeah, and they always rank highly in citizen satisfaction surveys. It doesn't really matter where. Everybody likes to have rec facilities nearby, and for those rec facilities to be, open a lot or to have different amenities. So yeah, game plan, we could talk a lot about that long-term strategy, and it has some pretty eye-popping dollar figures attached to it, but council has approved it in principle, so it is moving forward. But anyway, from a soccer perspective, it really dovetails nicely with the CMSA's public awareness campaign, which, as you mentioned, is called Fields for Our Future. We've talked about it a couple of times. CMSA is really trying to get the word out to government, to decision makers, to invest more in indoor soccer facilities to address the space crunch that Calgary soccer really experiences in the wintertime, because our city is growing incredibly rapidly. Our population, we haven't had a census in a while, but we're likely above 1.5 million people now. And there are 5 facilities that can host sanctioned soccer games in the indoor months. So it's not enough. If you compare it to hockey, for instance, there's like probably 24 hockey rinks here, or hockey arenas. So there's a huge discrepancy there. And there are more soccer players registered than hockey players, which I think is a stat that's becoming more and more known. And yeah, CMSA is really trying to make a push for the approval and the construction of more of these kind of dome facilities that we have seen popping up around the city and the region in recent years.
Yeah, we've got a couple projects that are well underway. The expansion at the Calgary Soccer Center, as you wrote about in the Herald, it's a little bit delayed, but it should be coming online soon. And Villains Dome, we had some of the executive from the Calgary Villains on the podcast few months back. They're trying to put together their own initiative. It's still not quite, I think, at shovels in the ground, but it's pretty close, I think. So we're going to get a couple more facilities here soon, but yeah, it's nowhere near enough, as Carlo mentions in the interview.
No, and before we get into that interview, I'd reference a few more that I know about. We've talked quite a while ago, but I know there were aspirations to build a dome in Cochrane. I don't know how far those talks have come along in the last 2 years since I first heard about it. So that's another one that, although not in Calgary, it would help because, of course, all of the Cochrane soccer community typically in the winter has to travel into Calgary. That would be a great project if it manages to come to fruition. And I know that West Hills United has aspirations to build a dome, but I don't know. I think that's very early days still. So yeah, lots of desire and demand for these facilities, and that's it's a testament to the need for a campaign like the CMSA's.
Okay, well, let's run the interview now with Carlo, and he can give us his perspective of the state of the indoor facilities today.
I'd like to welcome Carlo Bruneau to our podcast. Carlo is the executive director of the Calgary Minor Soccer Association, which last fall launched a new campaign to promote the need, for more indoor soccer fields in our city. Carlo, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
So Jason and I have talked about this campaign a couple of times. I believe it launched in around November. It was right at the beginning of the indoor soccer season. So I guess, several months since that launch, how has the campaign gone? And what has CMSA really been trying to promote?
Thanks again for having me today. We launched our Fields for Our Future public awareness campaign to highlight the urgent need for indoor facilities here in Calgary, and particularly because of the growth of soccer, which has, exploded exponentially over the last number of years. We are in a very dramatic deficit of indoor spaces to play and train. And so, as you said, in November, we launched this public awareness campaign to start bringing visibility to the fact that we need to start thinking about the future if we want our game to continue to grow and develop. And if we don't, we are going to be in a position where we're going to have to start capping registrations, which is something that nobody wants. But the reality is we're going to run out of space. So we launched this campaign to bring awareness to that, to hopefully bring government to the table to talk about investment into sports facilities, particularly prioritizing soccer. But of course, when you develop these types of facilities, they really are multi-use and community use. So we wanted to highlight the urgent need to invest. And we've had some positive discussions so far, and I'm happy to get into some statistics as well as to, why we need these.
You've been to City Hall a few times over since this campaign started. Can you talk a little bit about what you were doing there, like what you were talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. So this campaign is multifaceted in the fact that, again, we're trying to highlight the need for indoor spaces. And so there's been a couple different areas in which, we can make this become a reality. And so one of those has been the work that the city of Calgary has been doing with Game Plan, which is an overall recreation strategy to develop facilities here in Calgary to ensure that residents have adequate service levels, whether it be at aquatic centers, at rinks, and outdoor fields and field houses. And what they've done is they've really highlighted the discrepancy of, the number of field houses and fields that we have in Calgary, in particular to other major cities, and our service levels being well under what's needed to support an active, a thriving, and a growing city. So we've been down to City Hall a couple times to speak on the issue to the Community Development Committee. Which we had 8 of our young athletes come and speak to why this investment is critical to their current development and growth, but also for the future of soccer and the next generation of soccer players. And we were thankful that the Community Development Committee voted 7-0 unanimously in favor of putting forward the Making Waves scenario, which is calls for about a $250 million investment per year for the next 25 years with respect to recreation. And so that was very positive. And then later that month, it went to council for ratification, and it was passed on a 12-2 vote in favor of putting forward the plan. So this part of the plan is, it's a couple of years away from a shovel in the ground, but it's a really positive step forward that Calgary needs and our soccer community desperately needs to start developing the infrastructure to support the growth and development of our game, of the most affordable and most popular game in the world.
And Carlo, let's go back to that first answer. Can you really demonstrate how bad the shortage is at the moment? I mean, you and I have talked about this in the past with comparisons between the number of indoor soccer facilities and the number of hockey arenas in Calgary. Can you maybe shed some light on how short Calgary is at the moment?
In Calgary here, we've got 2 indoor playing venues, with a third still on its way with respect to the Calgary Soccer Center dome, which was supposed to be up a number of years ago, but was pushed. And more recently, it was supposed to be up in the fall, and now in the early Q1 of 25, and now we're hearing it's somewhere probably in Q3 of 25. So we are in a major deficit trying to accommodate 13,000 soccer players and thousands of matches. I think we've got about 7,000 indoor matches we have to accommodate. And if you can appreciate using 2 venues to deliver that is extremely challenging. And of course, we're really thankful and grateful for our incredible staff that do make that happen. But, on the flip side as well, that means there's not enough indoor facilities to train for our clubs. So our clubs are using about 15,000 hours of gymnasium time to practice and develop. And so, those aren't optimal development environments for our players and our coaches. And when we do get turf time for them, it's typically that, a full field, there might be, 8 different teams on that field, or 2 teams on a quarter field. And, particularly as you get older, 13, 14, 15, 16-year-olds, there's not much space left. So we're really not doing any justice to the development of our players here. And we've seen some success with, how many Calgary kids on the Calvary. Just imagine if we were actually having these development environments that give them the optimal chance to reach their potential, and think about how many more players we could have on national teams or in professional clubs, and really create a strong pathway. Because there's no doubt in my mind the next Christine Sinclair and Alfonso Davies lives right here in Calgary. We're just not giving them the environment to truly develop and reach their potential. Add to with that, based on where we are with the number of players, we've got over 30,000 soccer players here in Calgary playing on an annual basis. And right now we're 5 field houses short of where we need to be to properly deliver the game. So training in proper environments, playing the right number of games, playing the right half lengths, having some warm-up time. So that's today. By the end of this decade, once we've hosted a World Cup, and, statistics show that host nations see a 30% increase in registration after hosting, we'll be 8 facilities short. So action does need to start now. And this is, primarily why we've embarked on this public awareness campaign.
You talked about the status of the new soccer center and the new dome. Wanted to talk about back in December, we had some people with Calgary Villains on the podcast. Can you talk about the Villains Dome project? Like, it's It's not close to being quite ready yet, but how is that going to impact things? Is that going to help with demand? And what are your thoughts about that?
It's quite honestly so much credit to the Calgary Villains Football Club for their work and attitude to develop a indoor facility to again give their players and coaches an optimal training environment, and they've poured a ton of resources, time, and effort into that. Quite frankly, I don't really think that it should be on the shoulders of any soccer club to be doing this. Like, as taxpayers, we should have proper facilities that, meet the needs of our communities. And, they're doing it because you look around and there's nowhere to train. There's nowhere to, for them to grow. So they're doing it out of necessity. And of course, it's going to benefit our community. We're going to have players who can be in optimal environments to develop and to grow. But as it is, they're a volunteer board. They have limited resources, and of course, trying to go out and do all that fundraising, a major credit to them, but really they shouldn't have to at the end of the day. But it will elevate and improve our infrastructure here in Calgary. But again, I'm not sure it should have been their responsibility.
Would it be easier to get some of these projects underway if there was some kind of partnerships with clubs, or you think it's just better for it, it just to be sort of not have the clubs involved?
I think there's always a deal to be made. I'm not sure that it would always depend on the details of that. And what I'm trying to say is essentially, if the club could raise 5 million or 10 million or 15, whatever it's costing to build a dome, could you imagine if they put that actually back into their programming and their coaches and their players and that, rather than the surface that they have to play on? The game would be so much further ahead because of that, if we had the right investment from, local government to help deliver the game. We really don't want to make this a sport versus sport issue at all, because I've got a lot of appreciation for the work that, hockey and basketball and volleyball are doing as well. But it is well documented that soccer is underserved with the number of facilities that it does have. And again, we're multi-sport. We believe in multi-sport. I have children who play multiple different types of activities. We're just saying that the balance needs to be better. For the number of players that are playing the game, where we're projected to go, the fact that we're the most affordable and most popular game in the world, like it's not going to slow down. It's going to happen organically, whether we like it or not. What I would focus on is that investment going back into the game and raising the level of our coaches, or, raising the level of our players through different opportunities, rather than having to invest in structures.
Carlo, you did mention the delays for the dome project at the soccer center. Can you elaborate on what has led to those delays? Because, like you mentioned, it was the original intent was to open that facility in the fall.
That's a great question. I quite honestly don't have the answer to that. That'd probably be more of a question for the city of Calgary. I mean, it's their construction project. We are kind of on the outside looking in. And so I wouldn't have any insight onto what has led to the delays. And unfortunately, all we do is just hope and pray that it stays on track and it opens soon.
CMSA recently hosted the Family Day long weekend tournament. I think it was the largest one ever. How did that go? You want to talk about that a bit?
Yeah, I'd love to talk about that. Again, it just goes back to showing how passionate this community is about soccer, and year over year that tournament has set a record high. Last year was the record high. This year is the record high. So we had 276 teams participating in the tournament over the 4 days, and we had over 780 referee assignments, over 3,000 players participating. And again, we're doing it at 3 facilities and somehow making it all work. And so lots of smiles, lots of happy kids, a million memories. But it goes to show again the passion for the community. We had over 56 out of town teams as well participating in the tournament. So if you talk about, why facilities are needed and what they can bring, not only from a public investment standpoint? Do they improve our communities? But they serve a real economic impact as well. And if you, on a very kind of conservative and high level economic impact on that, it was probably over $1 million to our, to our local economy here just over those 4 days with, room nights and tax revenue and retail and restaurant and of course participating in the tournament. So, there's a real strong business case as well to, invest in new facilities. But imagine if we could host those more frequently and have provincials and host nationals and of course attract maybe even international. But again, credit to all the teams that participated. I think the event went off without a hitch, and we're looking forward to our next one here at the end of March, our March Mayhem tournament.
That's an indoor tournament, obviously.
It is, yeah, it's an indoor tournament. It's a little bit of a gear up for outdoor as well, but given, I woke up this morning and saw the snow outside, it may be a little bit premature to be playing outside. So we'll be indoors again, but it's the first time we're going to be hosting this tournament. It's the inaugural one, and we're lucky enough to have Booster Juice come on as our presenting sponsor. So we're looking forward to it. We've already got 150 teams registered for the event, and yeah, we're excited to deliver this one as well.
Awesome. And you talk about outdoor, and that's obviously right around the corner now that we're into March. What is CMSA looking forward to this outdoor? Or is there anything that you'd like to touch upon or mention in terms of what's coming down the pipe?
Yeah, I mean, again, we're excited to deliver the game to our players, to our clubs, to our community. We hope for good weather this outdoor season. No pipes bursting because that had an effect on where we could play last year. But we're starting another new tournament in May on May long weekend. So we're excited to deliver that. Of course, we've just wrapped up our season yesterday with our Challenge Cup presented by Shane Holmes. So we've got a little bit of a break, although we're hosting provincials this upcoming weekend as well. But I mean, again, for the summertime, it's kind of business as usual. Get the fields allocated and our scheduling updated, and we're just excited to again create environments and opportunities for our players to grow as players, but also grow as individuals.
Thanks, Carlo, for coming on the podcast and talking about this campaign. We really appreciate your time today.
Yeah, I appreciate your coverage. Scott, I've seen some of your articles as well. So I appreciate you guys being on it and helping us stay in the news. This is a really important issue. It's not just for soccer, but it's, for our entire community and the growth of our game. And with the Wild coming this summer, it's just going to be organic no matter what we do. So we got to keep on it.
Okay, thanks to Carlo Bruneau for being on the podcast. We appreciate it, and yeah, I think it's time we're gonna wrap this one up. It's gonna be real short and sweet this week. I'm out of town. I'm far away actually at this time. We'll have this episode released, and next week there won't be an episode, and we'll be back with a regular episode recorded sort of at the usual time, at the end of the first week of April. So I guess we'll just wrap it up from here, Scott. Have a good week and a couple weeks, and yeah, we'll talk soon.
Yeah, and have a great trip. When we do come back in April, I'm excited to pick it up and talk about everything that happens between now and then.
And maybe I'll be able to give you a post-match report from the Brisbane Roar. Thank you for listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast. You can have this podcast downloaded to your device as soon as it becomes available by subscribing on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or other platforms. Check out our website at yycsoccer.com, where you can look through our episode archive and find other options to listen, including our YouTube channel. We also have links there to buy Scott's book online. You can leave us a question or comment in the Contact Us section of our website. You can also interact with us on social media, such as Twitter, Instagram, or Blue Sky, where our username is YYC Soccer 403. Thanks for listening.